Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Amy and I'm a knitter, spinner and crocheter living in the northeast of England. Today I'm bringing to you my first ever sit-down traditional format knitting podcast. So we're going to talk about finished objects, works in progress, acquisitions, bits of spinning, and then I might put any live stuff at the end. So if you're not interested in that, you can just skip on past that. So I'm going to jump straight in and talk about what I'm wearing today. So I am wearing the mini mock neck crop by Jessie Made Designs. I'm just going to have to lift up for this. I will pop in some photographs as well. And I love this top. I've made it now 3 different times, and this is knit in the Yarn Artist Taylor Swift Lover yarn, and it's absolutely incredible. So I'm going to have to try and actually I'll put in some b-roll. It'll be so much easier to do that. And yeah, this was an absolute delight to knit with. I showed this in the Spring into Wool video at the end. I bought this when I was at Spring into Wool back in April, and I knit this top within a week. So I went straight after the show and cast it on and just flew through it in a week. Absolutely love it. It's a perfect top for spring because it's really light and before it kind of gets too hot and you don't want anything kind of woolly on your skin. It's just a traditional sock makeup, so it's just 75% superwash wool and 25% nylon. It's really, really lovely. The colours have come out in a really beautiful way. There's no kind of excess pooling. It just kind of has that really dreamy kind of cloudy effect, and I absolutely love it. The only thing I will say though is I think after making this 3 times, I'm probably going to make it the next size up next time, because I mean I could knit the body longer, but it's feeling quite narrow across here, so I think the next one I make I'm going to have to knit the next size up, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get that out of one skein of yarn. So I do have 2 lots of yarn waiting to be made into mini mock neck crops, but I don't know if I'm going to have enough to finish them, so I'm going to have to maybe do some strategic striping, or maybe do the collar in a different yarn, or the hem in a different yarn. The one thing I will say about this top, having made it 3 times now, is the neckline is really challenging to get the cast off right. So I do a kind of a yarn over cast off, so really stretchy cast off. So I'll cast off a stitch, do a yarn over, and then cast off, so it gives it extra stretch. The cast over is written I couldn't get it over my head, and I've tried it a couple of different times and it didn't work, so it does look a little bit kind of wavy, but at least I know I can get my head in and out of it, because it's not a very big hole, because it's a very small top. It's a very negative ease crop. This has come out at I think it's a 28-inch bust. I'm a 36-inch bust, so it's very much negative ease, and it's great, and that's kind of how it's intended to be fit. But it does, my one comment would be to make sure that you do a nice stretchy cast off, otherwise you can't get it off your head. So you start by knitting the back panel of the top. You cast on at the shoulders and do some short rows. You then knit the back panel down to the armholes. You then pick up for the fronts and you do these, then you join underneath the neckline. You then knit them again to the armholes where you join in the round, and knit the rest of the body, casting off at the bottom hem with a 1x1 rib. And then you come back and you pick up the neckline, and that is also done in a 1x1 rib, and then you cast off here. So your cast off edges are the bottom of the top and also the neckline. So it's, with it being such negative ease, you really need to make sure that you've got nice stretchy cast offs. So that is what I'm wearing today. It's quite warm today as well, so it's kind of like a perfect temperature. I think once it gets towards summer I'll not be able to wear these because it gets a little bit too warm for me. The next finished object I've got to show you is the second of 3 finished objects, and it is the Tulip Loop Sweater. So this one, I'm just checking on my phone because it was a while ago. I started on the 9th of December and finished on the 29th of April. It is a double knitting yarn held with a mohair gauge project, and it's 18 stitches and 28 rows to 4 inches on 4.5mm needles, with 4mm needles used for the ribbing. I used Drops Lima in the colour purple. I think it was actually Purple Mix, and then Drops Kids Silk in dark purple for this project. So I originally bought this yarn back in September time to go on holiday with to the Isle of Skye, and it was to make a Halloween jumper. But when I'll grab the yarn actually so I can show you. When I got the yarn, it was a bit lighter than I expected, and I wasn't really that enamoured with it. I felt it felt a bit pale and a bit dull on its own. So the project didn't work out what I was going to make with it. So I bought some kid silk in the purple colour. And the two of those yarns held together actually produce a really beautiful fabric. So what it does is it just makes it a lot richer. So here is the jumper. Oh, there's a feather attached to it. So I'm going to I'll put some B-roll in as well so you can see what it looks like and get a real close-up of the definition, but I'll just cover my face so you can have a look at it now. So this is an oversized jumper that is knit from the back. It's got this beautiful panel here, and you cast on at the shoulders. You do short row shaping, and then you gradually decrease down to this centre panel into ribbing at the back, which I thought was just a really interesting detail, and I've not seen anything like that on a jumper before. I really wanted this to be quite oversized, cosy. You can throw it on over the top of anything jumper. I started it in December when it was cold, and I thought, oh, this would be a perfect winter project. And I did really well. I blitzed through the body and got the body finished, and then it sat for months just waiting for the sleeves. I hate sleeves. What can I say? It took me a while. But when I finished it, I've got to say I absolutely love this jumper. I think it's a really, you can throw it on over the top of anything. It's cozy, it's drapey, it's oversized. It's really lovely. Perfect in time for spring. So I have actually managed to wear it a few days when we've had colder days in between the warmer weather days. It's got a cable that runs down. It's a really simple horseshoe cable that runs down the sleeves and also runs down the body and down the back. It was such a satisfying knit because it was just so simple. It was just ribbing pretty much with a cable row, I think every 16 rows, so it wasn't even onerous. It was the same cable stitch, so it became really intuitive to learn. I knit the size medium, and it's perfectly oversized. It's exactly what I wanted from this kind of jumper. It's kind of got that really cozy feel. It feels like a sweatshirt. The drops kid silk, I know some people find a little bit itchy, but I don't have necessarily sensitive skin, so I find it okay. The drop sleemer I find quite soft. I think, where have I gone? Where, I've lost it now. Here it is. I find this quite a soft yarn. It's very affordable. It's a alpaca and wool blend. Comes in some nice heathered colours. I do think that is quite a nice heathered colour. It just wasn't what I was looking for. I was looking for a really deep purple. So using that mohair has really brought that colour out, and I think it's perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. In terms of modifications, what did I do? I knit the neckline completely differently. So I never knit necklines as per the pattern. I never have, but for some reason with this pattern I decided to do that and it went wrong. So my method for necklines, I always, for picking up stitches regardless, ignore the pattern instructions. And I don't actually think it's ever failed me. So for every stitch that is vertical or diagonal, I pick up 2 stitches for every 3 stitches, or for every 3 rows. And when it's a horizontal, I pick up 1 in 1, so 1 stitch for every stitch. And what I find is that gives you a nice fitting neckline. I also find it gives you a button band that doesn't bunch, it doesn't sag, it just seems to work. I can't remember where I picked up this fact, but it's something that I've done for over 10 years now. It's never seen me wrong. So for this neckline, for some reason I ignored my own instructions and I thought, right, I'm going to follow the pattern instructions. But when I did that and knit the neckline, it was huge. It was really huge. And I think one of the things that I find and I see it in vlogs, I see it in knitting podcasts, and I hear it a lot, is about putting elastic in necklines. You shouldn't have to do that. So a pattern should be written that you don't have to put an elastic in a neckline. And yeah, I understand that it can help it give shape if it is too large, but my preferred method is to pull it out and actually make it smaller. Because ultimately, with the right number of stitches and the correct bind off, you should get a really nice, neat fitting collar. So that's something that I really advocate for. I've never put elastic in a neckline of anything ever. I just rework the numbers. So 2 for every 3 on a vertical and a horizontal, and then 1 in 1 for every, vertical and kind of on a diagonal. Every horizontal, it's 1 in 1. And the difference that actually made was about 20 less stitches. So when I did the first neckline as written in the pattern, it was 20 stitches more than I've ended up with here, and it was huge. So the pattern actually comes with instructions to do a double folded collar. I didn't want to do a double folded collar because this is all the yarn I've got left, and I still had the sleeves to do, and the sleeves are really long and they're quite wide, and I was panicking I wasn't going to have enough. So I did the neckline, put it on hold on the cords to keep it on hold. Then I went and finished the sleeves, and then I went back to the neckline. But when I cast the neckline off, it was just really wide and it looked really sloppy. And I don't think that even creating it as a double folded collar would have done anything. I would have had to do put elastic in it, and that's not, I don't feel that that's right. So I pulled it out and I did my method of 2 to 3 and 1 to 1, and it's given me the perfect shape neckline. It's the right size. I've cast it off using just a regular cast off, so cast off your knits in knit, your pearls in pearl, and it's given a really nice firm neckline that looks really neat when you wear it. Your t-shirts don't poke out, and it's exactly how it should be. So that's one of the modifications that I did do to the neckline. So that feels nice and neat to me. So the other modification I did was the sleeves. So these sleeves are long. They are really long. I don't know if the designer just has incredibly long arms, or if it's because I've made a medium size where I would normally knit a small. I have quite long arms for my body. I have a short body but very long arms, and even these were way too long for me. So these sleeves were already here without any ribbing, and you're meant to do quite a chunk of ribbing, probably about this much. The same as I did a little bit less on the bottom hem. So it's a good few inches that you're meant to do. I've done this much. I almost didn't do any at all, to be honest. I don't mind a long sleeve, but it was getting a bit ridiculous. So what I could have done is actually pulled back probably a full cable repeat and then done the rib as intended. But I think I'd got to the point where I was so fed up and I just wanted this to be done that I decided just to do a really small amount of rib. So that's all I've done. 1 by 1 twisted rib, which by the way really hurt my hands. Knitting these sleeves really hurt my hands. I did them on a short 40cm circular, and I think because the jumper's quite heavy, yeah, it wasn't particularly an enjoyable experience, but it didn't take me long. I got both sleeves done in just over a week. I work 10-hour days, so my knitting time is limited sometimes, and so they were mostly knit in front of the wrestling on a night, and yeah, I'm really happy with it. I love it. I would recommend the pattern. It's a really lovely pattern. I think the only thing to be aware of is the neckline does end up really big. The sleeves are very long, but other than that, it's beautiful. It's a really nice weight. I think it's going to be a perfect staple for autumn, and I really want to knit more jumpers in this style. So if you've got any recommendations of patterns that you have knit, so I've knit the Leon Sweater by Petite Knit, which is a similar style, kind of an oversized, cast it on at the back, do the shaping situation. If you've got any recommendations, please let me know below, because I'd really love to know what you recommend for these kind of oversized, cozy sweatshirts, because there's so many jumpers out there at the moment that look like this that sometimes it's hard to choose. And the final finished object I have to show you is this one. So this is the One That I Want crop by Lily Kate France, and I love this top. I've knit 4 of these and I absolutely love them. So this was knit in where is it? Adriafil Duo, which is a 50, it's kind of almost 50-50 cotton and merino blend. It's a really squishy garter stitch project. It's knit side to side, so you actually start at one side, you then knit around. You can do bust shaping here if you want to. You then knit round to the other bust shaping. You've got darts in the back, giving you this top is so flattering on like everyone. So this is the back of the top. So I've done a contrast trim, contrast edging, and the contrast yarn is actually a Rainbow Heirloom fingering weight yarn, and it's just, I mean, it's a perfect match. I had some buttons in stash from when I used to have my wool shop. I have a lot of buttons in kind of garment sets, so we were really clever when we kind of packed the shop up, that all the buttons we kept were like 8 to 10 buttons of everything, so I had plenty of buttons to choose from. The straps, I've sewn down the straps quite a lot here. I have a very short body, so the distance from here to here I always have to do significantly shorter straps. So the straps are knit in the pattern to a certain length, you can cast on fewer stitches, which is what I probably should do, knowing that I've knitted 3 times now. But you just sew them down in the back, so I've just sewn the extra fabric down there. But next time I could probably save myself the knitting time and make them a little bit shorter. So this is a really flattering top. I knit a size 2 with the full bust. So Lily's patterns are really good. She does a lot of bust shaping and bust darts, and they're very, very flattering. This one is very fitted, but you can choose to do it with bust darts or without. So the size chart has all of those measurements in. The previous ones that I've knit, I knit a size 1 with a full bust shaping, which is what Lily recommended. But because my back's a little bit broader now than it was when I knit the others, I wanted to give myself enough space. So I knit a size 2. It's actually, I think there's a few mods that I would make to it next time. So the width between the bust shaping, I think I could make narrower. And I think the space that I need, the extra space, is on the back here. So what I could probably do is knit these straight panels a little bit longer next time before I do the shaping, which gives me more space on the back rather than more space on the front. But I think it's a perfect pattern. I would really recommend it. I love it. It's really, really good in wool yarn, but obviously it can be quite warm at this time of year. So something that's got a bit of bounce in it. I wouldn't knit it in a 100% cotton. I have knitted in a cotton bamboo before, but it didn't have the stretch that it really needed. So this is quite an elastic yarn. It's got cotton, but obviously it's got that wool in it as well. So it's got a nice bit of bounce into it, and also because it springs back into shape as well, it doesn't lose its shape. You can cast on more stitches to make it longer. So it is a crop, but you can actually lengthen the body. And one of the ones that I've done previously, I did that. I cast on more stitches and made it longer, so it hit the bottom of kind of lower rise trousers. And that worked really well as well. It's a really intuitive pattern. You can tweak it and modify it, but that is the one that I want crop by Lily Kate France. Might be in a slightly different location because my battery died. The great thing about this camera is it gives you no notification, it kind of just dies. So I might have moved around slightly. So I'm going to move on to works in progress now, and I've got quite a few to show you. So the thing that I'm working on the most at the moment is the Ranunculus top by Midori Hirose. And this is the first one I've actually knit for me. I have done this as a sample knit before, and I have tried to knit it for me, but the yarn I had wasn't right. I was trying to knit it in a chunky handspun, and it ended up just massive. So I am knitting this in an Eden Cottage yarn, and this is Brumham Fluff. This is an 80% superwash merino with a 20% nylon core, and it's really unusual. It's so squishy. It's in a beautiful purple colour. I should have the tag actually here so I can show you the details. So the colour is Dusk. So there are the details. So you actually get 600 metres per skein with this yarn, and each one is dyed individually. So the lovely Victoria from Eden Cottage Yarns dyes each one on its own because it's massive. It's such a squishy big skein, and winding it up was really fun. It kept flying off the ball winder because there's quite a lot. So it's a bit thicker than your usual kid silk mohair. It's more like the thickness of a suri. So I am knitting this held single on its own, and it is producing the lightest, airiest fabric. So there we go. So this is where I've got to. And I've kind of paused. So I'm doing the short sleeve version where you just cast off the sleeves. There is a new version of this pattern. I'm knitting the original pattern in a size 1, which is quite still oversized. It's still an oversized garment. I believe it's got cat hair in it. I believe the new version of the pattern has actually got 2 sizes smaller. I believe I don't have that one, so someone do correct me if I'm wrong. This is cast on at the neckline, and then you knit the yoke down. You either put your sleeves on hold or you cast off the sleeves if you're doing the short sleeve version, and then you work the body once the underarm split has been done. It's worked on 6mm needles, so a nice quick chunky knit. The one thing I will say is every time I've tried to knit this top or have knit this top, I always do these rows wrong. So these rows where you lift the stitches, every single time I do it wrong and I have to pull it back. And pulling it back in this yarn is a little bit hard because it's quite sticky. So it's a very, very fluffy yarn. and it was quite a challenge to pull it back, but it worked. It pulled back, it was fine. It's my own fault. I do it every time. I should read the instructions properly. I get too cocky, too confident, and I just plow on, and I shouldn't be watching the telly when I'm doing that. So I love this. I think it's turned out really well. It's going to be so light and airy, but also like really cozy. Like when you put it on, if you kind of just put it on, it just feels like instantly warm. So probably a bit too warm for the summer, but maybe a nice cool spring day with a little vest top underneath and a denim jacket or something over the top. It's beautiful. I was going to try and get this finished for Buxton, but I didn't end up going to Buxton because I had our guild open day the day before and I'd hurt my back on the Friday, so didn't want to do a lot of driving. So in the end, I kind of just put it down and haven't touched it all week. So I need to get this finished this weekend, ideally, so I can get this into the finished objects pile. But it's so squishy. Yeah, it's beautiful. Obviously the yoke doesn't look as defined because it's in a fluffy yarn, and the lace is a bit less defined, a bit more fluffy, but I love it and I really like this effect. And yeah, it's a really lovely colour, and you can see some subtle kind of tonal variegation in there. So that is my first work in progress that I've been working on this pretty much on its own, but then I got distracted. So what I got distracted with, I'll show you the project bag that's in. Actually, I'll show you that now. So this is in my redesign project bag, and I bought this from Beth at Beehive Yarns, and this is awesome. So it opens up, so it's really hard to show. There we go. So it's got 2 compartments. It's got a space to put your needles and pens and things. It's got a zip compartment in the middle. You're meant to just put one project in here, but if you're doing summer knits, you can easily get a little summer top in here and a little summer top in there. So for a while I was actually carrying 2 projects around, and then it kind of zips around the corners. I love this. It smells amazing. That was a distraction. So the thing that has distracted me is in my little grey girl project bag. Jem makes beautiful project bags, and I had to have this one because it's got bunnies on it. Yeah, I bought this at Yarndale last year. So this project is something completely different. I am making the granny hexagon cardigan, and this is how far I've got. So I am making this in King Cole Jamboree, which is really unusual for me. I don't normally knit in acrylic yarns, but I saw these colours and I just had to have this yarn. So I am just working on my first hexagon now, so just going round and round, but it's really, really given me that good feeling. I just love how these colours are working together. It's a bit brighter in real life than it is showing on the camera. You then fold up your straight edges, and that's half a cardigan. So we discussed a guild the other day that this is probably like the size of a baby Annabelle cardigan. So that's if you don't know who baby Annabelle is, it's a really popular kind of baby doll in the UK, which my niece used to have when she was little. That would probably fit baby Annabelle or a cat, which I might start sizing the cats up to see if I can try it on them. So that's half the garment. You then make the other half. You then seam them together down the back. So this is the front of your cardigan, this is the bottom, this is your sleeve. And I just love the fact that the granny hexagon cardigan produces that kind of short, boxy, wide sleeves that are kind of cinched at the wrist, so they're kind of a bit baggy and lovely. And because I've not done one before, this isn't a big investment in terms of cost. And so I'm really looking forward to working on this. This is an easy one to just work on while I'm watching TV. And I am following a YouTube tutorial for this, which I'll pop in the link. I'll pop the link in the notes below. So I've been working on that a little bit. And then the other thing that I've been working on this week is actually something that just came out of nowhere, but I'm working on a new design. So I've had an idea in my head for a little while about a summer top design. I mostly design accessories, and I have done for many years. It's not a new thing, knitwear design to me. I kind of sporadically pop out a pattern here and there, but I've had an idea in my head for a while for a summer top, and this is the stitch pattern that I'm going to be using. And I love it. So the yarn is BC Garn Bio Balance, which is 50% wool, 50% cotton, I believe. I've lost the ball band, but I think it's a 50-50 blend. And it's light as air. It's a really, really lovely yarn. It's 4-ply weight. It gets 225 meters per 50 gram skein. So it's quite a light a light yarn. It feels, I always hear people referring to yarns as feeling dry, and I've never quite understood that, but this kind of does feel dry, which will be quite nice on your skin as a summer garment. So I swatched with a 4mm needle, which is at the top, and then a 3.5mm at the bottom. So this is the one that I went for because that was the gauge that I preferred. So I've cast that on now. So, oh, I've got the ball band here so I can show you. I'd shoved it in the middle of the wool. So here we are. BioBalance is 55% organic wool, 45% pure organic cotton. That's the yarn I'm using. The colourway is colour 12, so that's a catchy name. And I'll shove that back in there so I don't lose it. And that's the skein there. It's a really lovely blue. So I've cast it on, and this is how far I've got. Which is not very far because I've had to pull it out 4 times. So it has a small garter edge, and then it's got garter stitch down the sides. You can see the fabric there. So you might notice, or not notice, that the eyelet holes are bigger in this stitch. So in this diamond pane stitch here, you work yarn over slip knit, so it's twisting the stitches, but it was really uncomfortable to work and it wasn't giving you a really good flow. So I tried knit 2 together through back loop and that didn't work. So I've gone with just knit 2 together. So it hasn't done much else other than make the eye holes, the eyelets more defined. So that, as opposed to that, let's see if you can see. Yeah. So basically the eye holes just look a bit more defined. So this is, this might clatter off the microphone, so apologies. So it will sit here and then it's going to increase. I need to come up here. It's going to increase down here to here where it'll join with the back panel, and then the body will be knit straight down. There'll then be I-cord straps going over here that are long and that you'll tie in a bow. One of the things I mentioned earlier is that I find straps on summer tops always the wrong length for me. I always have to cut them, make them shorter, then they stretch over time. So I'm just going to make them long and tie them in a bow so then they can just be adjusted. So it's just going to be a really simple design, kind of straight along the top, increase to the armholes. Back panel is the same but a bit longer to give that added height in the back, join in the body and then down. I think this is going to be a really nice summer staple. It's going to be too late in the day to get this pattern out this summer, but I'm going to see how far I get in terms of writing up the pattern. I'm writing it as I go, and I'm hoping to grade it as I go as well, but it might be something that I then kind of put on hold and then test and release later next year. When I do test knits, I like to give people plenty of time to get the garment made, and I think it might be a bit of a rush for this summer, but we'll see how quickly I get the sample made up. You never know, we might end up with a late summer release, or we might wait until next year. I'm not in any rush. I might not even write the pattern up. Yeah, we'll see how it goes and see what people think about it. If not, it'll just be a lovely summer top for me. So that's one of my other works in progress. Then I've got 2 more to show you, which are kind of sporadic projects that I work on in between other things that just appease my ADHD brain. Basically, I sometimes need something that's like a little bit instant gratification. So the first one, I will pop in some B-roll, and you would have seen it in the introduction as well, is the Mild Magic Shawl by Stephen West. And this is a great project for when I'm in between projects. So when I need a palette cleanser, instead of doing a small accessory, I pick this shawl up and I knit the next section. So this one, you start off with this section here, which is 2 yarns held together. The great thing I love about this is it's stash busting. So this is all stash yarn. You can play around with colour, you play around with different stitch patterns, and it's just really fun. So this is where I've got to. So the first panel, the second panel is the moss stitch where you fade through. So it goes from purple through to like a mauve, through to a brown, through to kind of oranges, and then through to neutrals. And then this last bit, which I love, this yarn is actually my hand dyed, this purple. And I absolutely love this. I'll go and grab the ball of this yarn. And yeah, so that is that yarn. So that's my own hand dyed yarn. And that's held together with some Knitting for Olive Prince. So those together give that effect. So it really softens down the kind of insane bright purpleness. But it also gives the extra squish factor. So this section is done in brioche, and for some reason this one took me ages to knit, and it's just so squishy. So that's where I've got to. It's really hard to show because it's one of those modular designs. This blanket behind me actually is this I feel is just the shawl version of this blanket. So this is the Jigsaw blanket by Stephen West, and I knit this a few years ago as an intention to stash bust, and I essentially had to get more yarn to put into it because it takes up so much yarn. So all of this is just stash yarn, as I said, from mini skeins. These are all mini skeins in here. This one is leftovers and a Rowan Kid Silk Haze in a bright pink. So I just go into the stash box, pick out a colour, and then just go with it. So the next section, it fills in the gap from here to here. So I believe it's a triangle, and I think it's in garter stitch, this next one. So it fills in this, sorry if I've just muffled the microphone there. It fills in this gap here. So then it'll be more of a triangle. It's a funny shape. So I love this project. It's the thing that I just pick up when I just need, I've finished a jumper, I'll knit a section on this and then start the next project. So I've got that one. And the final project is another example of that, but this one's crochet. So I saw a photograph on Instagram, and it's Yana from, I can't remember what her podcast's called now. I'll put in the link below, and I'll pop in the image that I saw that just blew my mind. So this is my kind of take on what this beautiful cardigan is, and it's essentially a scrappy granny cardigan. So I've just been making scraps, leftover granny hexagons, using scraps of yarn, and I'm gonna sew them all together to make a nice boxy cardigan, and that's basically my intention. So I'm just picking this up as and when and just popping on some colours. So this one I'm trying to keep in a cool colour palette. This one is just chaos. It's just warm colours, cool colours, whatever, it's all going in. I've actually sorted my stash yarns into 2 separate boxes now, so I can have cool colours and warm colours separately. So I've got this one. So there's lots of pops of neon in here. There's some pastel colours, and they're all edged in just this yarn. This is Drop Sleemer in chalk. I bought it to do the colour work on the purple jumper that didn't work out, so I'm just using it as the edging for my squares. This one's got a bit of boucle in it, which is from, oh no, that's not the boucle one. Where's the boucle one gone? That one's the boucle one in there. That one is Suri Held Double. I started off really well at weaving in ends and then kind of lost track. And then this one. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I believe I need 40 something to make a cardigan. So I've got that little pile for now. And this is very much just a pick it up and work on it as and when. I've got a big box of scraps which I'll lean over and get. I tried to keep these all together. So this is what we're working with. Oh, it's all falling out. So you can see that those colours are mostly cool in tone. I do have some of this left over, which I want to incorporate. This is my own hand spun. This is what I used in my Alpine Bloom tea. And yeah, it's so bright. I love it. The yarn, the fibre was called Jelly Tots and is one of the best fibres I've spun. It was 100% Polworth, and just look at those colours. Spin cycle, eat your heart out. So I've also got some self-striping sock from Fab Funky Fibres. I've got some beehive yarns in there. Love this. Oh, love that one. I've got leftover Christmas sock yarn from Bird Street. I've got pink boucle. Love that. I've got neon green. I've got neon yellow. Some of them are neater than others. We've got odds and ends of fluff that are kind of being held with various different things, and then just lots and lots and lots of little mini skeins. So granny squares are a perfect way to use up all these scraps because they just take little odds and ends, and they can use, yeah, you can just use whatever from the tiniest scrap to a full skein. There is some commercial yarn in there as well. One of the things I like to do when I've got little scraps of yarn is to keep them together is I use hair clips. So bobby pins are perfect, or actual hair clips. And when I go to find them for my hair, I can never find them because they're all in my wool stash. But I have a really huge box of scraps. This is just a section of scraps. These are just the ones that are cool toned, and some of them aren't even wound yet. And some of them are just teeny little bits. But yeah, I hold them together just using hairpins because I find it makes it less tangly. Because they stress me out in the tangle. They're not all like that, but most of them were. I think I just ran out. So that is my box of scraps and my Scrappy granny cardigan. So we'll just see how that evolves. There's no time pressure on that. That's just something that I'm working on as and when, as with the Mild Magic shawl. So those are all the things I'm working on at the moment. I believe there's nothing else. There may be a couple of other projects that are kind of stashed aside, like socks. I tend to knit one sock and then have like a year off and then knit the other sock. I'm really bad at knitting socks in one go. But I do have a design that I have in my head that I will be working on soon, which is a sock related one. So I will have to knit both of those. So let's see how we go. So I'm going to move on now to acquisitions. So everything's descending into madness around me now, as that classic podcast record situation does. You end up with just things everywhere. So in terms of acquisitions, I have shown you my redesign bag. So I bought that, absolutely love it. It's beautiful. I just have to keep it away from the bunny because I have a house rabbit called Milo. I'll pop a picture of him here. He's absolutely delightful, but he has a taste for leather, so we have to keep that away from him. When I got the project bag, I also got the needle case. So I have mentioned in a previous video, but if you've not watched any of my vlog videos, I have loads of knitting needles. I inherited all of my mum's knitting needles when she passed away, and she had 4 sets of knit pros. She had acrylic ones, she had the zing ones, she had wooden ones, and what else did she have? She had something else. There was 4 different sets, and I just ended up with too much stuff. And I also had my own knit pros. I have hires, and yeah, things just got a bit chaotic. So I've had a good knit and needle sort out, and I am giving a lot of knit pro tips to a friend because I don't need them. I've got like surplus of everything, and I have put all of my needles in here. So this case is absolutely beautiful. So it's got a space for your fixed interchangeables. That doesn't make any sense. Your fixed knitting needles here. So the fixed needles that I've got in here are mostly hat size ones. So I design a lot of hats and I knit a lot of hats. So I've got a good selection of different sizes of 40cm hat needles in here. And then I've got some more in here. So I think I only go up to a 5mm. I don't tend to knit anything on a needle larger than a 5mm these days, except for my ranunculus, which is a 6, but that's kind of a exception to the rule. And then in here, my signature DPN needles. So I tend to knit socks on double pointed needles on magic loop. These knitting needles I bought when I was having some sort of crisis in my mid-20s. There was a lot going on and I had more money than sense, and I bought a set of signature double pointed needles from the States. So these are really sharp. These are so sharp that my husband once managed to get one of them stuck in the palm of his hand. These are 2.5mm needles. They're made from aluminium. They're really, really light. They were very expensive. I do have 2 circulars, fixed circulars from Signature as well. They no longer make knitting needles, but these are just so precious to me. I love them so much. And they're so pretty. They are crazy sharp. So they live in there. Again, as I say, I bought them in a former life when I had more money than sense. And then you've got little pouches here, so you can pop in notions. So in here I keep things like the cables for my knit pros and kind of needle stoppers. And then at the end, you've got space for your interchangeable needles. So on this side, I have a set of Knit Pro Dreams, I think they're called. So they're the symphony wood, but they're all different, like they're solid colours, whereas the symphonies are normally multicoloured. I bought these when I had my wool shop over 10 years ago, and they've always seen me right. So you can see that the reason I've kept these ones as opposed to the others is I know that that's a 4mm. I know that that's a 5mm. So my brain knows that the colour is the right size, so I don't need to get a needle gauge. I can just go instantly and go, I know that's a 5mm. So that's why I've kept those ones as opposed to the others. So those are in there. And then I've started to collect chiaogus. So these are my one of two pairs of chiaogus that I've got. So I've only got a 3.5mm and a 4 at the moment. I didn't buy a interchangeable set because I won't use all of those needles. So I'm just going to buy them as and when I need them, which will probably be like 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5. I might treat myself to a 6 for when I knit more ranunculuses. Answers below. I don't know what the plural is. And then you've also got space behind to keep your cables, and you've got space behind here as well. So there's lots of storage in there. It's really satisfying to finally have all of my knitting needles in one place. So that was that. And in terms of yarn acquisitions, I've got one, and this is a long-awaited one. So this yarn here is the Yarn Artist Lover. The day or so, no, the week after the Spring into Wool show, the pre-order went live for the next Taylor Swift yarn, which was Speak Now, and I had to order it. So here it is. I love this. So I love that all of the yarns come with a friendship bracelet. Mine says mean. Why you gotta be so mean? And this was inspired by the album cover Taylor's version. It is 78% merino, 20% nylon, 2% sparkle. So it says Superwash Sock 4-ply sparkle base. And there's the details. So you can check out the Yarn Artist. The pre-order for the next Yarn Club goes live, I believe, on Saturday. Maybe the day before this video comes out. So it might be live now, and it's red. So I implore you to go and check out their Instagram. So this was based on the album cover of Taylor's version for Speak Now. So I had to get that. I'm not sure what that's going to be yet, but I also got the 4-ply sparkle minis, and these were based on Taylor's dress from the Eras tour, Speak Now, and apologies for the crinklies. So this is the image that they were based off. I mean, that dress, I watched the Eras tour again the other day, and it's just magical. She just looks like a princess. Apologies if you don't like Taylor Swift. And these are the colours. There we go. So those are absolutely beautiful, and those are the same makeup as the big skein, and you get 80 meters per 20 gram, and it's 400 meters per 100 gram. So based off the album cover, based off the dress. I think I'm going to try and collect the minis and make them into some sort of Stephen West shawl. So the book that he released, that I can't remember what it's called, Painting Shawls, where you've got like lots of ripply patterns with mini skeins and a kind of a colour in between, I think would be really good. I'd love to get the Lover ones, but they're not on our website. Yeah, I'm going to have to try and look and see what show they're at next. So it'd be nice to kind of collect those and have like a Taylor Swift inspired shawl. And then this could be, I don't know what this is going to be, but maybe a hat. There's a purple theme in this episode. I've just realised that. My top, my jumper, the yarn. There's a lot of purple going on. So that's all my acquisitions. The final thing I wanted to talk to you about was spinning. I have finished some spinning, and this is what I've done. So this is a skein of yarn that is 80% Portland, which is a breed of sheep, and 20% alpaca. So both of the fleeces that this yarn is made from are local. So the Portland is from the Durham Dales, and the alpaca is from Northumberland. He was called Alan. It was a huge alpaca fleece. It's a fawn colour. I split it with a friend. It was nearly 4 kilos of fleece. We split it in half, and we've got like a crazy amount of this. So I blended it together on my drum carder, and just to kind of get an idea of what the alpaca might do to the Portland, to the sheep wool when spun. And this is what it's created. I'm really happy. I'm so happy with this. So there is 130 meters out of 50 grams. So it's a light double knit, and you can just see that there's just a little bit of kind of that. It's just really giving it colour and softness. The Portland fleece is really soft as it is. It's a really, really beautiful fleece, and it's lovely to work with, but this is just giving it that extra level of softness. So the experiment that I tried has actually gone really well. So now I need to spin another 450 grams of this fibre so I can make a garment out of it. I've got 50 grams prepared that I need to spin, but then I need to prepare and spin the other 400 grams. So yeah, that's just a little bit of what I've been spinning. I will kind of have bits of my spinning here and there. I'm not spinning a great deal at the moment. I'm mostly knitting, pattern writing, editing, that kind of thing. So I can only do one thing at a time. But yeah, I'll pop in a bit of spinning here and there, but essentially it's now yarn. So that's the final thing. So yeah, that's it. In terms of life stuff, not really a massive amount to report on really. I'm going to be going to Tangle Galashiels at the end of May. So if anyone's interested in coming to say hi, come and say hi. It would be lovely to see you. I'm going to be vlogging that event as well, so I'll pop that on the YouTube channel afterwards. And if I buy anything, there's nothing specifically that I'm looking for. I would like some undyed yarn so I can just experiment on something for some plans I've got coming up. But other than that, I'm kind of just going to have a nice drive out and just to potter around and to meet up with people. So that'll be lovely, a lovely weekend. Other than that, that's kind of it. Just doing lots of work and yeah, just life stuff really. And we've had Pooley Kitten recently, so this video was meant to go out a lot earlier, but we had a bit of an incident with one of the kittens. Thankfully, she's all fine now, and they've been kind of shut out of the room for this part, so I can record the podcast in peace. So thank you so much for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed. It would be really good if you have enjoyed this video, if you'd like and subscribe to my channel. I love watching knitting podcasts and vlogs. If you've got any recommendations for channels that you really enjoy, please do pop them below, because I'd love to find more new channels. But yeah, I've really enjoyed talking to you today. If you've got any questions, you want to know anything more about me, I can cover that in a future video. I'm going to try and do a sit down podcast every month at least, as well as putting other content out as well. So let me know what you'd like to see. Yeah, just anything you want to chat about. What are you working on? Pop it in the comments below. I'd love to find out. So thank you once again for watching, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye.